So, Liz Shelton has been missing. She's the mother of a sweet boy and the daughter of one of my best friends. I'm reading the bottom here. She is now in the missing person database. Elizabeth Jade Shelton. Elizabeth Jade Shelton, aka Liz Shelton, and she's got her own Facebook page here. It's liz.shelton.50. But that's what she looks like. She had been involved in some domestic violent dispute, was put an EPO, DVO on the guy, and the guy did some real sadistic shit. So her boyfriend was a soldier, a military soldier that didn't do anything to her, but she has been missing for about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 days now. So they need to find where Liz Shelton is. She's got a picture of her dog and her boy there. And her face says she lives in Lexington, Kentucky, and that she is from Paris, Kentucky. So, Liz Shelton is missing, so if anybody knows where she's at, people are looking for her. Be on the eye, be on the lookout. Because at this point, 6 or 7 days, missing persons cases you never have, you don't know what happened, so you always think they're out there. And so it sucks. It's like a death without it being a death, because you never know. So, hopefully we can find her. There's, let's see, I want to do a quick update on the chase. There's a big chase going on right now in Cumberland County. There's a couple who had sued the Kentucky clerk. Kim Davis actually married, so that happened. Right, Kim Davis's efforts did not thwart them from actually getting married. They have got married in Moorhead, Kentucky. April Miller and Karen Roberts stood before a minister Saturday night, hand in hand. They said the 2 words they fought for months to exchange: "I will." Which I guess, why would they not say "I do"? The people packed into the room around them jumped into a standing ovation. They all wore matching rainbow buttons that read "Love Wins." So Kim Davis couldn't stop the marriage from happening. She didn't put her name on it, and so that was what she had won. There's something about Kentucky seeks more people to serve on teacher tribunals. The Kentucky Department of Education is trying to recruit additional educators and non-educators to serve on teacher tribunals. Under state law, before a teacher is fired or suspended by a school district, the teacher has the right to appeal the decision and have the case heard by a tribunal. Each tribunal consists of a retired or current public school teacher, retired or current public school certified administrator, and a lay person. This is WKYT.com. So every tribunal, everybody gets an appeal, and then the tribunal is conducted of 3 people: 1 lay person, 1 administrator, current administrator, and then 1 teacher. So an admin, a teacher, and a lay person. None of them can live in the district from which the appeal was made. So that's actually, that seems like a fair way to do things, assuming who makes that tribunal up. Where does that lay person come from? Who picks, these 3 people? The hearing is overseen by a hearing officer from the Attorney General's office. So these are really strict, complicated things. That's why you can't get rid of teachers, especially tenured teachers. But in order just even for a new hire, it's got to go to a tribunal, and a tribunal can be appealed by anybody, and then they got to get all this together, so state officials say people currently in the pool for assignment to a teacher tribunal or those who have already served on a tribunal will need to reapply and undergo training to continue to serve. So to sit back and say, well, this is right, that is wrong, they have to be trained. We're not training any jurors, but here's okay. So Floyd Cook. Floyd Cook was the man who had shot at Tennessee authorities. The cops in Tennessee shot, I think, and hit him in the life vest, the bulletproof vest, and then when he got to Kentucky, he was pulled over. Now, some interesting things. There was a SWAT team had stormed a house that they thought that Floyd Cook was barricaded inside only to discover an empty home. So they was like, oh, he's in there. That's where he's at. And they went ahead and stormed it, and there's nothing inside. There's nobody there. They said, of course, he's armed, dangerous, and on the run. We all know that. The interesting part was like, okay, so you got Cook, right? Floyd Cook. Floyd Ray Cook is the man's name. He took off on a black Ford F-150. You know, after shooting the Tennessee cop in the bulletproof vest, he goes into Kentucky. When he comes into Kentucky, he's driving a black Ford F-150. Later on Saturday, it was involved in another shootout. The second shooting happened in Kentucky. They say the shooting in Cumberland County, Kentucky, also started as a traffic stop. Kentucky State Police say when they tried to pull over Floyd Cook, over along Highway 61, he started firing shots at them before taking off into the woods. Thankfully, no one was hurt. And then there's an active search in the area. Okay, so he's driving Ford F-150. They pull him over. He shoots at him a couple times, and then it's an old man. He's 62 years old, and he's running out in the woods of Cumberland County. How did they lose him? The person that had pulled him over, how did they lose him? I mean, yeah, he's got a gun. He's shooting at you, but when he shoots, he gives up his location so you know where he's at. The only way they could have lost him is if they said, we're going to go to bed and take our chances for the night. It makes no sense of how he was able to get away with just a gun. It seems like it's just a pistol or something. So, and from what we're being told, this is WKYT.com. So that is still going on. That is still happening. He is still at large, and no telling where he's at right now. Floyd Cook. And this is when he was in Cumberland County. In the woods in Cumberland County. So he's on foot. I don't know how far you think a person could get on foot. But it's not that, it can't be that far. There's also 2 were shot during an argument in Pulaski County. Police are investigating after a double shooting in Pulaski County. It happened around 11:30 p.m. Saturday at a home on Scenic Vista Drive in Somerset. So that's all we know. 2 men were in an argument, and they both were shot. And according to firefighters, both men had to be airlifted to the University of Kentucky Medical Center, and the Kentucky State Police are investigating it. So a little talk about the elections. Okay, so you had the debate in Eastern Kentucky between only 2 of the 4 candidates. They have been railroading Drew Curtis, making sure he isn't able to get on into the debates, which is fascinating because in order, they just have arbitrary standards. 10% is what the Kentucky League of Women Voters. I think the Kentucky League of Women Voters kept Heather Curtis out. So, if that isn't like a bunch of bitches, I don't know what is. She's got her own ideas. She's independent. She's intelligent. Of course, the League of Women Voters wouldn't want Heather Curtis coming to their little shindig. She likes science. Heather Curtis likes science, and, this is Kentucky. You can't like science around here. You got to be loud about your ignorance. So, Drew Curtis did not participate, they say, because he didn't make the 10%. On a poll, but there was an internal poll. Matt Bevin had a poll that said that Drew Curtis was at 11%, and then the Bluegrass poll had Curtis at 7%. Well, what's interesting about these polls was they were polling Jeff Young and Jonathan Masters, Kentucky Lieutenant Governor Democratic ticket at 13%. 13%. We wound up getting 20 to 21%. They were 7 to 8 points off, and there's always a plus or minus 5%. So if he's at 7%, plus or minus 5% gets him above that threshold. They were 7 to 8 points off, so 5% wasn't even a close enough margin. They didn't even get close. A poll is not an election, and yet that's how they are using it. So, when you get your establishment media, your mainstream media, that's what they do. Your mainstream media, when instead of trying to give everybody equal access, equal what can they do for the state? They'll pick their horses. It's more like a baseball game. Who's going to win? What are we going to do? Instead of having a conversation about policy, it becomes about you got to pick your candidate who you think's going to win and all this other crazy shit. So it's I don't know. It's playing politics, but it's really insulting the Kentucky people. It's like they're assuming Kentuckians are stupid. And if they run enough ads on the TV and on the radio, that's all they care about, and that'll get the votes. Who gives a shit about what they stand for or what their policies are. Said 4 guns were stolen from a Lexington police officer's SUV in Nicholasville this morning. So they're stealing guns from the Lexington police. Outright majority in Poland, Poland's Eurosceptic Law and Justice Party, which is, the Law and Justice Party, the Eurosceptic Law and Justice Party. And supposedly they have weird social conservatism mixed with left-leaning economics. So that's totally changed Poland's electoral, their leadership, their government. So, and they might even be talking about changes in the Constitution since they're a parliamentary body. In order to, if they got 51%, that's enough for a majority of government. But if they want a solid sort of base of support, then they'll pick up one of the smaller parties, get 10% or so that way they got 60%, that's a good, strong, solid government to which, the president says, I want this, and then everybody else just rubber stamps it and gets it done. So that's what they're aiming for, is solid government. I think those types of talks and negotiations are good for government. It opens up, if you accept a party, one of the smaller parties into your coalition, it gives one of the smaller parties much more chance to gain power than, majority takes all. So, and then there's another, election that happened in Guatemala. There's this headline, the Washington Post said he's the Trump of Guatemala. I don't know why, but Jimmy Morales is a 46-year-old former comedian, and as of Sunday evening, Guatemala's president-elect. He's never held political office, yet he's got 68% of the vote in a runoff with former First Lady Sandra Torres, whose ex-husband Alvaro Colón was president of the country from 2008 to 2015. Torres, a card-carrying member of Guatemala's political establishment, got just 33% of the vote. So either they lifted this Jimmy Morales, this former comedian, into the highest land, either because of his inexperience and unorthodox ideas. He, including some of the crazy ideas, is he wants to make sure that teachers have GPS devices to make sure they're doing their job. So he wants to have RFID implanted in all the teachers. And that's just kind of a crazy idea in a way, but they are agents of the state, and they should be doing their job. I don't know why you need GPS devices. Can you monitor them when they're at home just to make sure they're at the school? And then he wanted an idea to give every child a smartphone. So that's pretty good. He painted his face black once to play some character. I don't know. I don't know if he sounds more of... He doesn't sound like Trump or Bernie or anything. He just sounds like a comedian who won office. His entire slogan was "Not corrupt, not a crook," and he wound up winning. So good for him. They are two different places, Guatemala and the United States. One is recovering from a 36-year civil war, which the United States has actually caused, and there's violence, poverty, corruption. And then the United States is relatively peaceful and stable. So it's hard to say if Donald Trump of Guatemala won. I doubt it. I don't think he's the Donald Trump of Guatemala. I didn't get that he's a rich businessman and a racist. But I guess we'll find out. Some interesting things in politics are happening in Poland, in Canada, and Guatemala. In a way, I almost think that all these elections are sort of, trying to soften the blow of what's going to happen with these southern state elections, Louisiana, Kentucky, and I want to say Maryland maybe. There's 3 state elections coming up. Kentucky's elections is in 7 to 8 days, and vote Adam Edelman. No, my point is, I think it's trying to buffer, it's trying to give the American people, look at the Canadian elections, look at the Polish elections, look at the Guatemalan elections, just because Kentucky is not a barometer of national politics. What happens in Kentucky does not show what's going to happen in the rest of the nation. In fact, it could be quite the opposite. Kentucky went for Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama. They went for McCain. They're the first one to go for McCain over Barack Obama. So what the entire United States had saw, Kentucky was the first ones to not see and stand up and go to the opposite side. And then they held on to Mitch McConnell and their poverty and their cancer and all the, horrible statistics that they have to deal with. So, in fact, what happens in Kentucky could be very much the opposite, of what happens nationally. Gay marriage is still an issue. The Obamacare is still an issue. A lot of seemingly stupid ideas, which I feel like society has already sort of solved or amongst thinking people. But there's still issues, and these shouldn't be issues. We should be talking about policies. Economics is really all we should be talking about in Kentucky. Cancer, I think, some important stuff. Police brutality, but those are diversions. It talks about gay marriage and talks about anything else that I mentioned before. Healthcare. We need healthcare. My God, that's so fucking stupid. Even Jack stayed away from Obama, and Nixon's 1971 war on drugs, he wants to escalate. So I'm not confident. I'm not confident with I don't know, Drew Curtis, I think, is a better candidate than those two guys. So it's kind of bullshit that they're railroading him and making sure that he's not a part of the discussion. There's 4 candidates for governor. There's 5 executive positions, so, make sure y'all look at, vote for Adam Edelin. I think Allison Grimes has already got it, but you should vote for her too. And really all the Democrats, you should vote for Drew Curtis at the top of the ticket, all Democrats except for the treasurer. Put Allison Ball in there, put one Republican in there, and Democrats for the other 4 positions, the auditor, the Commissioner of Agriculture, the Attorney General, and the Secretary of State, all Democrats, and then Governor, Drew Curtis for Governor, Drew and Heather Curtis. That's your dream team for what you want in Frankfort. But if it's just going to be a bunch of stupid Kentuckians going to vote for whatever the ad they saw last on TV, it's going to be interesting. I think it's just going to be a crap shot. It's going to be a crap shot. You got 2 dice. Are you going to get snake eyes? Are you going to get 7? Are you going to get 11? And what does that mean? Are any of those good or bad? So, the last thing, I guess, if this is still rolling, which it is, Forbes actually says that we are the lowest, one of the worst states for labor supply. So, in terms of a lot of cheap labor for factories, yeah, we got that. But for educated, workforce, people that know what they're doing, we don't have that. The report ranks each state on a number of factors, including business costs, labor supply, regulatory environment, economic climate, growth prospects, and quality of life. While we are one of the cheapest states for business cost at number 14, it was near the bottom for labor supply at 46. So very cheap business cost, but you're not going to get any, qualified employees, and that's what a lot of these businesses want when they come into a state. They want the resources, the landscapes, cheap business cost, but something more important than that is having adequate, ample amounts of employees for them to be able to hire. That's what they want. They want good, qualified employees, and they want lots of good, qualified employees, which is, a good, strong middle class is also good for the economy. So this is good that what the businesses want are also happen to be good for the economy. They said he was shocked, Jack Mazurek. They said, some other things. See, Kentucky's got a population of more than 4.4 million and a gross state product of $189 billion with a median household income of $45,315 according to the report, and it found that Kentucky's cost of doing business is 5.5% below the national average. Kentucky is best known for its horse racing, bourbon distilleries, automobile manufacture, tobacco, and college basketball. The Forbes report stated horse racing is a $4 billion industry in the state, and the Kentucky Derby Run for the Roses generates more than $400 million annually in economic impact for Kentucky. The state has 474 motor vehicle-related facilities that employs 86,672 workers. So here's where Kentucky ranked in other categories. We're number 32 in regulatory environment, number 20 in economic climate, number 23 in growth prospects, and number 23 in quality of life. Utah topped the list as the best state to do business. The top 5 rounded out by North Carolina, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Colorado. Colorado, top 5 states to do business. So when it comes to regulatory environment, we're not doing very good. Quality of life, growth prospects, economic climate, we're very much in the middle of the road. Labor supply, we suck. We're not providing good, high-quality employees. 1 million poor people, the education system sucks. They're not learning what they need to learn, and they're not making that connection between learning and training and getting a job. So there is definitely a gap. It's a structural gap. It's you need to be able to bridge those two together, right? Bridge you got workers and then you got businesses. So you need to bring those two together. I forget what a structural gap or something. But yeah. So, whereas we're number 14 for business costs, very cheap for businesses to operate here. When it comes to labor supply, we're 46. So, having a lot of dumb, stupid people, while it's good for cheap labor, it's not good for high-quality jobs, like in Denmark. And Denmark is the greatest business environment out there. And one of the reasons is the high quality of life, but also education. They're all educated and can do the job, which is what Kentucky evidently needs, because we're at the bottom of the labor supply.